Need to lower this just a little bit so you can see what's going on, what is happening out there. Gypsy Heart Entertainment, what is happening? Thank you so much for tuning in. I wanted to say hello to everyone. Leo, what is happening, brother? I have my camera tilt a little bit, so the names are coming a little bit across, slightly blurred. So I apologize about that. But there's a reason for this, for me to have the video tilted. First of all, I want to hope everyone is doing well out there. It's yours truly, Rockin' Dave, the real deal, North Fort Myers, Southwest Florida, and all that good stuff. So again, thank you for tuning in. I really appreciate all who is tuning in right now. It's a little bit difficult for me to see your names because, like I just said, my phone is tilted down, but it's so that you guys can see what's going on with my hands here. And there's a lot of guitar players out there that have always been taught you got to hold the pick a certain way, you got to hold your, play chords a certain way, and all this other stuff. So the point is, what I wanted to do this video is to let everyone know that everybody, first of all, as we know, are built differently. Our hand sizes are different. Our arm lengths could be different. Some of us played sports. Some have an injury that they had during playing sports. Some of us work construction. We've done all kinds of things with our hands. So to say that there's only one way to play is really not accurate. And this is not to discredit anybody, because there are a lot of different ways, obviously, to hold the pick and to, fret the chords. And one of the videos that I see a lot, or when I was teaching very heavily back in Illinois, was I would have all kinds of students from all different backgrounds, interested in all different kinds of music. And what I mean by all different backgrounds, a lot of them, like I said before, played sports. I had young kids that were still playing sports. I had adults that did play sports. I had adults that had a form of arthritis. I had all these types of students, and they all shared one thing in common. I think it's Jimmy Biter, what's happening? Yeah, we got Leo Metal Guy and Gypsy Heart Entertainment. Again, thank you so much for tuning in. There's a couple other that have popped in on the live chat, and as I see your names, I'm going to make it a point to give you guys a hello and a shout out, because I don't want to be disrespectful to anybody. And so what I've encountered, that was just the beginning, when people come in and have different backgrounds, different styles. George, what is happening, my friend? Thank you for tuning in. I really appreciate this, guys. And Jimmy Biter, if I haven't mentioned your name before. One thing in common, and I'll grab the nylon string guitar in just a bit, because there were a lot of times, because I had students that were interested in all different styles of music, I had young kids, literally grade school kids, that were taking classical guitar lessons with me, and they were never exposed to that style of music, and when they heard me play it, their minds opened up and they were like, they wanted to do that. And I would also teach them ways to play, first position chords, power chords, all kinds in between. Oh, thank you. I really appreciate it. Thank you. I really appreciate that a lot. So I would have all these students with all these different interests. And the one thing that, first of all, that I was told that you can't teach young kids how to play classical guitar. That right there's a myth. Because just because they're a young kid and they're a beginner does not mean it's Mary Had a Little Lamb or, Twinkle Twinkle Little Star. And there's nothing wrong with that because that method of teaching serves a purpose. Okay? But the reason why I expose students to the styles that I play, and then of course what I don't play, they're more than welcome to bring that material in and we can analyze it. And the reason why I do that is because you don't know, as a teacher, you won't know if someone has a hidden talent. You won't know until you kind of like open up, that style to them. And you'd be amazed how many people really have an ability, but they've been kind of pushed aside and being told that, well, no, that's too advanced. No, everyone is different. Everybody's thought process is different. Everybody learns at a different pace. It doesn't mean it's right or wrong. It just means everyone is different. And I would have students, I would actually have more of the adult students who started playing and then they stopped and then they want to get back into playing. And some of them were young adults and they're between, their mid to late 20s into their 30s in that range. And then they were told that, well, no, to play these chords, you have to have your thumb up over the fretboard. Or they would say, I want to play like Jimi Hendrix or Stevie Ray Vaughan, and I want to be able to learn to do the tricks over my thumb. Well, if that's the case, that is a good technique to learn. It really can be good. However, also get used to, here's the D major chord, right? This always gets a reference of why you need to hold your thumb up, right? First of all, when you're strumming, so you don't hit that low open E. And there is some truth to that, don't get me wrong. But if you are constantly only showing this method, and I had a couple of students that fell in this category, and they couldn't do this type of a C chord, which is your C add 9. I also call this a C add 9 plus the 12. And boy, I get a lot of feedback on that one. But I'll explain that later. So, but basically it's a C add 9 chord. And then to a G. Now here I'm not really having my thumb over the fretboard. I was able to learn how to come down, strum on an angle so I don't hit this top string. But there's been a couple of pieces of music where some of my students would play and they would play in an assembly hall or they would play in like a little ensemble where they were told, don't play this C add 9. We need for you to play this regular C major chord because these other notes are clashing with what the piano player is doing. Okay, so now here's another set of issues. So when you're playing this D major chord, and then if you go to this C, my thumb, let's see if I can show you guys this, my thumb is right here now. So I have it where I can pivot my hand. And the reason why that is to give my hand leverage when I need it. Now, I've seen it where people are telling you got to have your thumb up like this so you don't hit that open E. Here's a little trick. I take my third finger and I just have it touch my low E string. So right there I'm playing my low E string. I'm not pushing down on the E, I'm pushing down on C. You can't, it mutes out that string. And I gotta change strings on this guitar. The reason why I would show my students this is because at some point they want to play that F chord. I wonder what that F would stand for. I'm not going to elaborate on that right now. Because it's always a hard chord to play. Because you're barring two strings, and then with your, barring two strings with your index finger, middle finger will play the A on the G string on the second fret. Third finger comes up to the F on the third fret on the D string. That could be, for beginners, the hardest chord to play. Because what happens is they could play this note, that note, and the C of the F, but they have a hard time playing that. So it sounds like that. It makes it worse when they have their thumb up here, because what happens when you have your thumb up like this, it's almost like you're forming a ball. Now, there's going to be times when you will need to have that type, and I'll get into, I could do that right now, like a G major 7. My thumb is up a little bit, but it's not over the fretboard. A very common chord progression I'll play when I'm playing major 7ths into minor 7ths and into another major 7th is this type of a major 7 where the root is on the low E string. In this case, it's a G major. Then I'll go to a B minor 7. And then I'll slide up to the third fret to play my C major 7. Then back to B minor 7. So you can't really see where my thumb is. It's tough when you have beige walls and your skin's beige, you know what I mean? But let me get to the point what I'm doing here. Here's my G major 7. Notice where my thumb's at. Here comes the B minor 7. C major 7. Back to B minor 7. Back to G major 7. So what I would do with my students who were able to play these type of chords, or they're able to get their fingers to play across all 6 strings, and they would have a hard time with the bar chords, I would teach them this type of motion. So they would get used to that. Sometimes you will have your thumb up here, and sometimes you won't. So you might as well, right off coming out the gate, as an absolute beginner, whether it's that chord or a simple D major to a C major. Again, what's happening with the thumb? D major, C major. Not C add 9, but regular C major. So you get used to that motion. It doesn't really take much to train a beginner how to do chord shifting. Because what happens is, if they're constantly thinking they have to play like this, watch what happens when they try to play a bar chord, or they get this idea, yes, I want to play Couldn't Stand the Weather. Now I'm in standard tuning. So they want to play that funky groove, right? First you got... Sorry about this. But now here comes the groove. Now I always improvise around this here. So I'm playing a D minor 7 on the 10th fret. But that type of funky groove, I know it's not exactly right how that song is played, but I'm using this as an example. Or they want to play Long Train Running. If you keep your thumb like this, it's going to be impossible. It's impossible for me. Now, you might have some students that have long fingers. That's fine. That's okay. But it's still going to limit them if they are only taught this method. And not, literally coming out the gate. If you want to show them, here play a D major chord like this, that's fine, because there is truth to this method. But right coming out the gate, at least teach them a D minor chord. It's still D, and you don't have to say, well, what song is this or what is that? You need to understand that some of these students, the reason why people have problems breaking bad habits is just they got it embedded in their mind that there's only one way to do things. And that right there is bad way of giving advice. And I mean, we all sometimes, as we talk, we move forward and we keep talking, and maybe we don't realize this, but it's over the course of time when you start seeing now they want to go into another style of music, or there's a particular song that is going to require, if it's not a full bar, it's going to be a half of a bar. Now they got to reposition their hands, and they can't. And the reason being, and this will happen, my friends, the student will say, yeah, but last week you told me this. See, they're going to remember all this stuff. And I've had stuff like that happen to me. And I would think, oh, you know what? You're right. I did mention that. And I'm like, okay, I apologize. I need to give you the full picture. This right here started on my little journey when I would teach. I would expose students to all the different styles that I play. And if they were still dead set on playing first position chords and they wanted to sing, and I don't sing, but I've had this situation where there was a young girl. She was, I think she was a freshman or a sophomore in high school. And I forget what song it was she was learning. She was taking vocal lessons from the vocal teacher at the school, and she was taking guitar lessons with me. And she asked me, well, how do I learn how to play and sing? And basically, it was a situation, chords like this. She was able to do the transition from D major to B minor, which I was very impressed. So I would train her to do the chord shifting and strum. And when she felt comfortable with that chord shifting, and I think the intro or the first verse, it only included those two chords. Then I would tell her, you don't have to sing out loud, but move your mouth and now concentrate on the lyrics. But at the same time, see if you could feel where you're going to fall apart here, because it's a coordination factor. And she was able to develop over the course of time. But I guess my point I'm trying to make is that I would show her the different options that's going to help her, because see, now you're going to sing and play. Now it is no more two things you got going on. One is the chord positioning, and two is the strumming, right? Now you got the third element, your voice, you singing. And usually melodies could be at a different tempo than a strum pattern. And that's where, man, some people just literally fall apart. And I understand. I got a horrible voice. It would take me probably years to develop that. Another thing that helped me as teaching to understand absolute beginners, I would flip my guitar left-handed. And actually, I'm going to grab the nylon string guitar for this, because now I want to show you guys a little something here, because this is really going to be where you could really see what's happening here. I would flip my guitar left-handed, and I am 100% uncoordinated. 100% uncoordinated. I don't even know how to hold a pick with my left hand, or maybe I can a little bit. I can't fret anything. Look at this. Totally uncoordinated. And I've had my fellow guitar players in the neighborhood tell me, well, why don't you learn to play like that so you could play both ways? That would be kind of cool. And I thought, yeah, that would be kind of cool. And then I thought, wait a minute. I see the advantage doing this. And I would do this in front of my students to show them I'm uncoordinated. Because what happens is, Yellow Ocean Original Songs, what's happening, my friend? I appreciate you tuning in. Thank you so much. Pooh Ninja, thank you so much, brother. The advantage of being uncoordinated this way, at least for me, is that it brings me right down to their level. And now I completely understand where they're coming from, because after 40, well, almost 45, 46 years of playing like this, of course it's natural. You know what I mean? So therefore, that kind of makes me look at where they're coming from there. Okay, now, in the world of classical guitar, any classical guitar teacher right off the bat is going to teach you, you never do this. Never do that. Always have the thumb here or to the back. Because you are going to need to have certain simple A minor chord. I still don't, maybe a little bit you could see it, but I always give myself that leverage, always. Because if I don't, it's going to be like hell trying to fix a bad habit. Now, let me get back to the very beginning of this video when I said some people want to learn to play like Hendrix or Stevie Ray Vaughan or anyone who's able to take their thumb over it. There are some advantages to that. Oh, absolutely there are some advantages. And it's another technique in your arsenal. So therefore, practice it to, however you want to develop it. Practice that way of playing as well. But do not neglect at least this, where your thumb is not always above here. Because it's not a matter of if, it's when. You come across something that you will need your hand. You will need your thumb to be to this part of the neck. Now I'm playing a C major chord, and my thumb is not wrapped around. My thumb is like right here on the neck. When I play E major chords, sometimes it's like that. Sometimes it will. I always give myself an option for leverage. And I hope that really makes some sense for people who want to teach. And you look up these videos and you might see some of this advice. And again, I am not trying to discredit what they're saying, because there are advantages to what they do say. But that is a very narrow niche of playing. And again, it doesn't mean that you couldn't develop it. So I don't want to come across as I'm trying to put those people down, because I am not. But they really do need to really open up the big picture, because I've had, like I said in the beginning of this video, in the past, I had students where it was incredibly difficult to help them clean up their bad habits. And some of them would quit. Now, that's on your fretting hand. And of course, if you're going to do, well, I always play this piece, Astorius, or anything that's equivalent to this. If my thumb was wrapped around here, there's no way, especially when I come to this section. This right here, it's basically without the tremolo, it's so my index and my pinky are planted on plain B, 2 octaves. So where does my thumb have to be able to do that? My thumb has to be right here. Not up like that, right there. Again, I would have students come in and they would say, I want to play the Beatles. And not every Beatles song is always easy. So, or they would say, I want to play Black Sabbath. I want to play Iron Man. Because when the Guitar Hero video game was real popular, everything was exploding for guitar lessons. And it's a lot easier teaching kids who want to play rock music to play a 2, power chords, right? Very, very easy. I would also teach them this method as well. But that's what works for them. Now, very easy, right? Smoke on the Water. if your thumb is up here, it's going to be difficult. Now, if you have long fingers and you could do it, that's fine. But if you can't, don't worry about it. This is why you have to learn how to be able to play with your thumb up. Take that same chord, play it with your thumb down a little bit, because it's not a matter of if, it's when. And when that happens, then if a student has gotten several months into playing and they're making progress playing that one way, now they get a bright idea, they hear something, they see something on YouTube, look out. Yeah, copyright strike. Yeah. All right, try to be very careful with all this, Pooh Ninja, because, it is what it is. And I'm not going to, yeah. Actually, it's interesting, Pooh Ninja. I have a book in my bookcase in the front room that it's a real thin book. It was through Malbec Publications for beginners. And it came with a CD. It was, I can't remember offhand, but there was a simple book showing beginners how to play rock songs. And they would literally make up their own chord progressions. And this is an older book. It was like maybe 2006, 2007, somewhere in that area. And I thought, this guy's a genius, because he's never going to have to worry about the copyright infringements. And I think one of the rock songs was titled Dude. And all it was showing students how to play rock rhythms, power chords, and rock rhythms. It would have the fast version and have the slow version. And it was not a particular song, but it was a style. So that was very helpful, very, very helpful to avoid copyright infringements. Okay. So you have your fretted hand. If you're left-handed, you're going to fret with your right hand. If you're right-handed, like I am, you're going to fret with your left hand. So we're going to call this your fretted hand. It's going to do a lot of different shapes. Now, I would teach students how to do this because I found this information in one of my Soundboard magazines. And Soundboard is a magazine you get quarterly through the Guitar Foundation of America, and it's all classical guitar. But there was several articles in there also about hand injuries. This is another thing. One of the guitarists was also a physician, a doctor, and she was saying that you got to be careful on how hard you train someone to play. For this instance, for classical guitar, it could be extremely, extremely challenging and very, very tough, very strict instructions, because it's absolute perfection, like all the time, whether it's fast tempos or slow tempos. It's like when you listen to a really good classical guitarist, you close your eyes and you'd swear you're listening to an album. They know their dynamics. They know how to fade in, how to fade out, make the transition. Sometimes you don't hear the chords squeaking. I mean, it's incredible. But it's very, very tough training. But what this lady was saying, you got to be careful. When people would go on and say, no pain, no gain, you better be careful with that statement. Because if there's too much pain, you will have no gain. Because you're gonna really do damage to your muscles. This is last Sunday. There was, I think it was 1:30 or 1 o'clock Eastern time. I forget what time it was, German time, or I think she's either in Germany, Russia, or the Ukraine. I can't remember. Her name is Tatiana. I can't pronounce her last name. Raskanova. She's a classical guitarist. And she was saying the exact same thing about you don't put the thumb over here. Give yourself leverage. You're going to need it. But she was also saying if you do too much over practice, she said, then the muscles, you can do a lot of damage to them. So you have to be very, very careful, Now, this other woman that wrote these articles basically saying the same thing. So what she also said, when you do your chord changes, there's a number of ways you could do chord changes. You know what people say? I have a hard time from going like this. Okay, so it's that shifting, right? Because especially in the beginning stages, you learn to play your D chord, you go to your C, right? And sometimes in the mid transition, the fingers flump, the fingers are moving, but as soon as you think you got to hit that chord on the downbeat, they slop on the fretboard, and sometimes they're here, sometimes they're there, sometimes this, sometimes that, right? Because they flop, because we're always trained. When you play a chord, make sure everything rings out. Make sure everything rings out, right? Solid. You don't have to kill the hand, but it's got to be solid. So what this lady was saying, in your transition, to help people, Janice Lala, what's happening? Hello. How are you? So, in the transition states of chord playing, what this lady said, put your fingers on the strings and fret the chord. Don't push down though, and don't even strum. And you could do a 4 count. Just do 1, 2, 3, 4, and then switch to the next 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 1, 2, 3, 4. Let me see if I can move that. 1, 2, 3, 4, and do that. But touch the strings so you could feel them. And then you could start adding pressure. Because you see, it's not in the strum, it's in the shifting. See, this is one shape, and then you're going to play your C chord, and right away you feel rushed, and the fingers slop down, and sometimes you get lucky. But what she said, with this type of training, only takes a few minutes, and you're very relaxed when you do this. You are training your fingers to shift, and not only shift, but you're changing the shapes, so that when you come down on those strings, you're not going to have problems, because you've already trained your hand to do shifting. And then, if you want to do this, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then let's do threes. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and then twos. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, and just do it as a quarter. 1, 2, 3, or just go like 1, 1, 1. What you're doing is you're training your hand how to shift, so that when you do add the pressure to play the chord, it's not going to be fumbling and stumbling. So I hope that can help people out there, because it is very common. I'll tell you what, when I go over new classical guitar pieces, which lately I've been getting back into very, very strongly, there are times when my hands are just like, okay, how did I do that before? And I've got to do these very, very odd shapes, not just like this. A lot of people can pretty much do this. But if I'm... or if I'm doing something like this. I got the bar here, and I got this going on here. So there are times when I'll just work with things. Now let's get on to bar chords. Little joke is, when do you play a bar chord? Is when I'm in the bars. That's when I'm playing a bar chord. But bar chords, there's 2 ways of training your hand. Before I do the full bar chord, I had a student, young little kid, and he had a Washburn, like a Super Strat his dad bought him. Full size, not small size. He couldn't play that F up there. It was like his too far away, and his fingers couldn't spread apart. So his name was Danny. So I said, come on, Danny, I'm going to show you a little trick here. We're going to play down here. I said, Danny, could you put your fingers right there and do that? Of course, it was with the pick, Yeah, I could do that. I said, let's make up a song. See, if you make up a song and you make it positive and it's fun, then the challenge gets a little bit easier to digest because you don't feel like, oh, now I gotta do this and it's gonna be hard. You're not, it's not negative, it's positive. And then we would just do this as a little exercise. And the first lesson, he got up to my B position, 7th fret B. The following week, he got it to A, 5th fret. The next week, he got it to G, and finally, boom, he was able to get it to F. And I asked him, I says, Danny, how does your fingers feel now? Oh, they feel fine. So, with little fingers, and as we go up the fretboard to the low register, the frets are getting spaced out, so the little fingers, they got to do this, you know what I mean? They got to go like that. Okay, so that helped him there. Now let's get into the bar chords. The easiest way to train, and it doesn't matter if you're a child or an adult, a beginner, big hand, small hand, it doesn't matter. The best way to attempt to play a bar chord is do the half bar. And again, look what happens with the thumb. You see, it's got to be here. This is what I mean, And again, I'm not trying to tell people who want to play like Hendrix with the thumb. No, you do that as much as you want, but don't neglect this. Simultaneously practice these techniques, and then you'll get good together. You know what I mean? So I said, let's work on a half a bar, A minor. Sounds like a very famous song that I will not play because I don't want the SWAT team to come out of the closet and, right live on YouTube. Down, boy, get cuff them. You know what I mean? So you take your bar chord, you get used to this. Your finger is gonna be doing like that type of like a little bit of a vice grip. Now I'm doing this on a nylon string guitar. It'll work on a steel string. I got plenty of steel strings. It'll work on a 12 string. But you need to understand there's something going on here, and this is what Tatiana also touched on. All right, there's your bar chord. So in this particular situation, all those notes are ringing out. Now, this becomes the challenge because one finger is flat. This finger has to be arched. Now, you might not be able to see this, but I would tell students in the beginning stages, if I could do this, if the pad of this finger hits that G string, right? Hear that? You can't ring out that note. But you can ring this out. And this is because this is your very first time adding that third finger. I said, let's strum this a little bit. So you get used to this. Over the course of time, what's going to happen, your third finger will learn how to arch, so you play with the tip. And again, what helps, if you're able to have the thumb, not up here, but bring the thumb down here, look what happens to the hand. It like kind of comes out. When that happens, you're rolling to play the tip of the finger, and you're not going to be hitting the string with the pad. Now, if you have a fretboard that's narrow, it can be challenging because some people's fingers are a little bit stubby. So keep that in mind. Okay. So that's one way you can start to develop it. Now, let's go over playing the whole bar chord. In this case, we're going to do A minor. Okay, there's something special with the A minor chord. I would tell my students, take your middle finger, use as leverage. When you get used to that, bring your third finger and your pinky. And if you cannot do it up here because of the fret spacing, come down a little bit. And you know what? It does help if you sit in a classical position. A lot of times you'll see me doing this as well. But again, I've been doing it for a long time. But 90% of my very stern and very strong practice routine, I sit this way. Because I was in the early 2000s, I was training myself to get involved into these international classical guitar competitions. I never got involved in any of them because when you win, now you go on tour with the orchestra and you better know how to sight read like real good. So I figure, you know what? And at the same time, I started getting all these other gigs that now my whole day was not, my whole day got interrupted because then I would have to go over certain songs and certain styles because I would get hired out to play. So instead of having all day just to focus on one thing, it got cut short. So, and I do like playing different styles of music as well. But what that really, what it really was training me in is, again, going back to when I first started playing in the early 80s, how to mimic all these fade outs and how to mimic like really being good. You know what I mean? Not just saying you want to be good or saying you're good, and then no matter how good you get, don't flaunt it. You know what I mean? Don't use it to make other people feel bad, because when you get into these competitions, your competition is not going to be the Eddie Van. Your competition could be these people that are extremely good, and it's good, healthy, friendly competition. It builds you up. You learn by hanging around smarter people. How I got good, I hung around people that were better than me. That's how I got good. And I would get inspired and go home and practice. But anyways, so what you could do is you could play down in this, a D minor chord. But the middle finger, it uses the strength of the middle finger to come down on, now I'm on the 10th fret position, playing D minor. Now this part pushes down on my index finger, but it really only needs to push down on this part of my finger because my tip is pretty strong, but these two fingers are playing these two notes. I don't have to worry about this part of my finger because it's not playing those notes. These are. If that makes any sense, you'll see what I mean. Now when you play a major chord, you add your middle finger on the G string. You probably think, okay, now I don't have that leverage of that finger pushing down on here. Okay, but that's okay because now instead of trying to play all 6 strings with your index finger, you only have to worry about the 6th string and the B string and the high E. And the reason being is your middle, third, and pinky are taking care of these strings. So you'll start to learn how to do shifting with your fingers for leverage. But again, what happens is that keeping the thumb up there is going to be impossible. Very, very impossible. Again, if you have bigger fingers, I'm not saying, maybe I shouldn't say it's going to be impossible. Let me backtrack. I apologize. It'll be more challenging because some people will be able to do it. And I don't want to be throwing out blanket statements that applies to everybody. Because again, everybody is going to approach this different. Okay, so now that could take care of your left hand. Practice doing these different, if you want to do that where the thumb is up here, go ahead. But at the same time, regular D major chord, bring your thumb down a little bit. Give it that leverage. And then don't always go to the C add 9, although that is very good. A lot of times, there's a lot of songs will have that. But there will be times you'll be playing D major to C major. And if you want to keep the thumb up like that, okay, you can do that. But also get used to playing with the thumb down a little bit because it's when you come to your bar chords that it's going to stump you big time. Now, let's get on to the picking hand. I've seen videos where people have good advice. I'm not trying to, again, this is not to pick on anybody. But I've never heard these people say, I also play different styles as well. So there is a reason why my picking hand will almost look like it changes shapes. For instance, when I do my picking exercises, okay, a lot of times it's cuffed. And And then there are times when I don't even think about it, my hand will open up a little bit. And sometimes my hand is butted up against the bridge. And there are times it'll go like this. And I've noticed that. And I've had someone ask me, why does your hand do that? And I would say, you know what? I'm not too sure. And now I have to stop and think about it. And I thought, whoa, wait a minute. I also, when I play classical guitar, look how my hand is. It's opened and it comes down. When I do my tremolos, so it's almost like it's arched. So because I don't play just one particular style, my hand is going to go and move around to accommodate the other styles that I play. And there's been a lot of times where I've done gigs where it's like at a drop of a hat with one guitar, I'm playing, that's why I'll use the nylon string a lot. I'll play one particular style and then boom, next thing I'm doing is something like this. So I have to be prepared at a drop of a dime to be able to shift my hand. So over the course of years, that's why I was able to do that. So when I would see people say, no, Dave, and I've actually had one of my friends try to tell me this, and he means well, but when I showed him exactly why I do what I do, then he understood why. Because I said, go ahead and try playing that. And then it was instantly he knew where I was coming from. So my point is, there's a lot of times you have to play and come up with a way of holding your pick that's good, and strumming and all that is going to really be the easiest for you. Let's see. I just the live thing just kind of disappeared. I didn't really see that last comment. Sorry about that, guys. Rick Romanello, let me see Dave's pinky on the body. No, you know what? The only time, Rick, I'm going to tell you what. You know what? That's interesting. But there is a time when I will do that if I'm doing Stairway to Heaven with my, and it's kind of like down like that. So it does brace. But when it comes to the classical style, no, because what happens, then it's like my hand feels like it's stuck. And if I have to do anything, let's say, again, using Astorius as a good example, it's impossible for me. For me, it is. So I keep it where it's floating. Sometimes the pinky will come out just to get out of the way. Now, you might have heard the term rest stroke and free stroke. So let me explain what that is. Rest stroke is not that I'm resting my thumb. Let's say when I'm doing scales. I have to do a lot of working on this because I haven't done this in a while. I could do it like on one string. So I got my thumb kind of resting on here. That's not a rest stroke. What a true rest stroke is, let's see if I can get close so you can see this. When you play a note and the finger rests up against the next string, so you can see that. So I pluck the high E and my finger rests on the B string. That's rest stroke. Free stroke is it actually comes away and it doesn't rest on the next string. That's called free stroke. When I play scales, I do free stroke. See how my fingers kind of like they're going in? And for me, if I play 3 notes per string, I use my index, middle, and my ring finger. This is known on finger picking. Thumb is the letter P. Index is the letter I, middle is the letter M, Ring finger is the letter A, and occasionally pinky has the letter C. When I use my pinky, I'll just do it like this. So if I'm doing something like this, so it's kind of like giving that little bit of almost like a harp playing, combination of a harp and how a snare drum, if that makes any sense. That's really the only time I'll use my pinky, you know. But so you see, when you're going to play different styles of music, it's going to require different techniques on the hands, and that's basically what you have to keep that in mind. But there, not everything is going to work for every single person, because again, some people had to work, very physical jobs, and maybe they hurt their muscles, so their hands can't exactly go one way, but they could play it another way, and that's fine. Another thing that would be real strict in classical guitar training is you got to sit up straight like this all the time. Well, there was articles in the soundboard talking about be very careful, because we're realizing that now we got these young kids who had played sports. Now they got a little bit of an injury, so they can't always sit upright that straight. So they might have to slouch over slightly due to an injury. You see, this is what I mean. You have to look at where you are at that moment as you're learning how to play. Now keep this in mind. There is a fine line between nurturing an injury because of something physical that happened, and then laziness. And I don't like saying that, but if a student is lazy and not disciplined, then they are going to create more problems and more bad habits, But there's a way around that as well, and that way is good, solid encouragement. If you find a guitar buddy that you could practice with, and this helped me with developing my technique. There was three of us, Andy and Angel and myself. We would practice together with a metronome and a picking technique and all that. And we would have the friendly competition against each other, but we would encourage each other. We would actually do drilling exercises together with our metronomes. And if one person was a little bit, slacking, we'd slow it down to help bring them up. But we would encourage them. So it was a very, very healthy environment. And I have a funny feeling that's how it would have been like if I would have gone to GIT, but I chose not to. So I went to Sidewalk High or Sidewalk University, and but I learned a lot. And again, I learned from people that were better than me, and I watched them. And even if they were a little bit on the rude side, I would watch them and I would listen, and I would take the advice that would work for me, and then I would go home and I would practice. I think that's one of the main things is you have to take the information that you get, not just information from me, but information from everybody out there in YouTube, and then apply the one that is the absolute best for you. So that's why when I'm putting these type of videos, I do try to make it where what happens if somebody out there cannot do this or they cannot do that. There are ways. You just have to work with building your hand to develop that type of a technique. For instance, when I'm doing scales down here, sometimes I'll take my thumb completely off the fretboard. So if I'm doing an E minor scale on the B and high E string, now my thumb's coming off the fretboard. See? So there, now I have my hand is in another different position. Now my thumb could come back behind the neck. So there are ways you could actually approach something for whatever situation that you have that you cannot do at that time. And you could start to like mold your hand to where you could do it fluidly. That's always the main goal, is to be able to do it fluidly. There's one more thing I want to do, and I actually went about an hour, is octaves. We are always learned that octaves could only basically be played like this, right? So here's an A octave, Here's a D octave. Here's a G octave. Goes out of tune a little bit. And here is C, right? But watch this. Here's another A octave. And here I'm skipping 2 strings as opposed to skipping 1. When I would go over some of the Bach pieces, they would always have like this rotating bass line. It always give me a problem, you know. I started to practice my octaves. My problem was I would have to shift my hand. And I thought, okay, I could take the piece and go over it, yeah. But then I started coming up with ways of doing octaves just as a regular exercise. And I would use this to also tune my guitar sometimes here. So here's my E. Here's my G. E, sorry. Here's my F. Here's my G. Okay. Here's my A. Here's my B. A. Here's my B. Sorry about that. Here's my C. Here's my D. Here's my E. Here's my F. And here's my G. It's a little tricky. And then I would do the same thing, going across 6 strings, and it would actually look like I'm going across 6 strings and I'm coming here and then I'm working my way up. Let's see if I could do this so you guys could see this. I'm going to play A octave, 5th fret. I'm playing the low E string and the D string. A, B, like this. Could you see that? So A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, D, and then E. Because my hand would have to do this to play some of these Bach pieces. So I figure I might as well come up with something that might make sense. And it took me a little while to digest this. And when I was doing a lot of very heavy practice into that style of music, I was getting very quick with this. It was incredible. My friends would watch me do my octaves. It would be da 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 da. And I'm like, crap, how do you do that? I says, well, just very, very slowly and accurately and evenly. The secrets to playing fast and making it really stand out really is to play slow for a very long time, but have control. I'm going to finish off this video with this little subtopic. You're going to see videos out there that are going to actually tell you to play fast. Why not start by playing fast? There is some truth to that, okay? Because you do have to get used to, it's called tremolo picking. I'll take E on the 5th fret on the B string. And the reason why I want to do this on the B string, because I have a high E and I have the G. See, if you're playing on the 1st string, you got nothing next to here, so you could go nuts, right? But the trick is do it with strings that are in between. So I would suggest for that type of exercise, just do your tremolo picking. Let's say if you do this on the 5th fret, do it on the B string, the G string, the D string, and the A string. But be very careful. If you do this too much and you only do that, what happens when you come across a passage that you have to do, let's say you're going to play A, B, no, E, F, G, and A. A, you're going to pick up on the high E string. Guess what? Now you're crossing a string. E, F, G, A, and back. You're going to have to learn how to do it as accurate as possible. And I'm going to tell you, my friends, I was 6 years into my playing when I decided to not stop playing, but stop trying to play fast to impress people and play sloppy, going like that. And this, I would do this in jam sessions in front of people, man. And my friend Angel, he was a wizard, but he was very, very down to earth. And he was always encouraging me. And he told me, Dave, maybe it seems like it's going to take a long time for you to get it, but when this locks in, you're going to nail it. Because we would have our jam sessions, and he would be able to do stuff like this. And I wasn't. So what I would do, if I had to play that same passage, I would just do... I would play it the way I could actually handle it, and then I would come and I would do something like this, and just go right back to that. And that would be my speed burst right there, at that pace. Because I wanted to understand, I wanted to fix a problem, and the only way to fix a problem is to understand what the problem was. And my problem was I could not cross the string on an upstroke. Meaning, if I start on a downstroke, it'll be down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down. Did you see that? It was like hell for me. But I would sit there with that metronome, and I was determined to clean up my picking exercise. And that's why I could play so fast on an acoustic guitar, because I would not just do it on the acoustic, I would do it on my electric, but I wouldn't plug the electric guitar in, because I wanted to really, really build my technique. And again, the only way you're going to fix a problem is when you come to terms with yourself that you do have that problem. So let's learn how to fix it. Let's concentrate on the solution to that problem and just work with it and let it go. Even look, if it takes you a few months, so be it. You're going to live a long life. And trust me, a few months is going to go by whether you practice or whether you don't practice. You know, one of our friends, he wants to learn how to do sweep picking. And when someone asks me, Dave, what's your technique of sweeping? I say, I get the old cedar broom and I make sure I'm going like that. I said, that's really not a big interest for me. I could do pretty quick with the 3 strings. But because I know where I'm at in my accuracy in sweeping, I try to make a melody out of it. So let's say if I take a C minor. I would work with that. Do it as, I'm going to say, as accurate as possible with the same type of pressure per note. Very even. Pretend it's supposed to be slow like that. The reason being is your mind has to digest what's going on here with the left hand and the right hand and the notes. If you try to speed through it, now at least this is what happens with me. If I try to speed through it, it gets slopped. So I figure, well, why not I just make a melody out of it? So what I did, I took my minor and my major arpeggios and I made like a little song exercise out of this. So what I have here is a C. I know this might be, I'll later grab the Ibanez so you can see the fretboard, because on a nylon string you can't see it. But I would do this. Major. Try to make a little melody out of it. vibrato and a little nice quiet way to stop it. Now you got more control over it. It sounds musical. And if I wanted to spend, months or however it'll take for me to nail that in here, I know I can not only do that and get it very fast, but it'll sound musical. You see, that's what you want it to do, not just fast, because as soon as you just concentrate on one thing, sometimes it doesn't sound musical. And let's really be honest. As an instrumental guitarist, to me, the guitar has to speak and sing, not always being like fast all the time. It gives you the impression you're always being hit with a bunch of bullets, or you're being yelled at if you're playing. I watched an interview of a guitar clinic BB King gave, and obviously it was a while back. And BB King was saying, he can't play fast or loud or anything. He says, but for him, when he comes out as an entertainer, he comes like an introduction type of a solo, a melody, like a. So you're introducing, you're saying something, Carlos Santana would always have the reputation of he makes the guitar sing. So as an instrumentalist, the guitar's got to do more than just play fast. And for people who are a little bit feeling down that they can't play fast and maybe they won't get accepted here, there, or wherever, just sound good. Because I'm going to tell you right now, I got all those gigs that we were doing and all that traveling and playing over in Europe, not because I could play fast. That was just the icing on the cake. But it's because I was able to make it sound good. It was melodies. See, that's why I favor melodies. I favor speed burst with melodies over just constant shredding. You know what I mean? Because to me, the two have got to coexist. And that's just my personal preference. So anyways, my friends, I didn't mean for this to go over an hour. Sometimes when I'm explaining something, I try to be as thorough as possible, But I'll have more videos where I'll touch on technique, where maybe I'll just focus only on one type of a technique per video, so you can really see what's happening. This is kind of like an overall view of a little bit of everything. But really, when approaching your guitar playing, look at how it affects you. How do you approach playing, and what is the most comfortable for you, so that now you don't have to sit and try to be like you're training for the Olympics, because you also want to make music and you want it to have that, you want it to flow from you. But what works for me may not work for you. Our favorite guitar players, as much as we like them, they're going to be able to do things we can't do, but guess what? We'll be able to do things that they won't be able to do. So it's a two-way street, So I won't be going live this Friday, only because it's our 21st wedding anniversary. So Deb and I are going to just be able to chill and get our me time in. But I might do a Sunday afternoon, about 2:00, and I'll make an announcement where it'll be like a fusion. Like what is fusion guitar music, and I'll play a little bit of it, and then I'll get into some of the styling and the artists that heavily influenced me, and not just guitar players, other violin players and keyboard players as well. So it'd be like borderlining fusion with progressive rock and that whole genre. But that'll be Sunday. I'm gonna shoot for 2:00, but again, I'll put the announcement the day before. But anyways, my friends, thank you for tuning in. I hope this has been helpful for everyone. And again, learn from as many people as you possibly can, because that's what I did. And it really helped me. And if you find teachers in your area, by all means, take lessons from them and help support our music teachers, because they really do help. If you connect with that certain teacher, by all means. Another thing, my friends, take care of one another. These are tough times, but these are also the times that we'll be able to really, build our guitar techniques and maybe learn new things in life, to help us out in life. Anyways, until Sunday, my friends, you stay safe, you stay true. Thanks for watching. Rock on, and God bless you, my friends. Take care now.